Brad?
Yes. I always love our I say I love the starts already. It always says Brad, and
Brad?
I'm like, I always get, I'm amped up. I'm ready. This is awesome.
Yang Hansen plowed his way through the CBA. He was the two-time Defensive Player of the Year, two-time Rookie of the Year, which I don't even
But
know how that works.
that's my favorite thing that's ever happened. Is that he was so
He
good.
was so
We're
good.
like, we got to give you
Rookie
this
of the
twice.
Year again. He's been a monster. He's put up a ton of points, put up a ton of rebounds. Didn't his assist numbers weren't that great, but I was kind of looking at some of the highlights and like you're seeing these finishes some of his teammates are putting on. There's probably room for improvement there. He's got passing chops. They're all saying he's the Chinese Jokic. When we traded back, which I think the trade back is a good piece of what to talk about. We'll get to that. But when we traded back to 16 to Hansen Yang, what was your first reaction?
Well, let me ask you this. I'm switching it around. I'm asking you
Okay,
the
you
question now
ask the
again.
questions now.
How do you feel? Because here's the thing. I was in a guitar lesson when this happened.
Yeah.
My phone is blowing up. I was telling everyone, like, text me what exactly is happening.
Yeah.
When we drafted Cedric, did we know before we drafted him that we were trading it?
Shams had told us if you were looking on your phone. I was watching on Streamy, so I was pretty behind. So I think I got that alert before it went on the camera. But it's in typical ESPN fashion, where they're just oozing. I mean, they were oozing of the story of Kama Watch, which is an awesome story. So I don't blame them
Yeah.
for that. But obviously, when the Blazers pick comes up, especially when it's trading with the Grizzlies, they're not really too eager to like get to the
Sure.
news. So I think it was kind of like a bang bang, like the Blazers are up, but it's actually the Grizzlies, and it's such a coward. And it was like, okay,
Was
whoa.
there a moment where you thought we drafted Cedric Coward?
I don't think so,
Okay, that's what I was wondering because
but
you
it
were
was
big on Coward.
very fast. Yeah, I was big on coward, and that's that's the other thing is, I mean,
Was that heartbreaking to see that we traded that pick right
when
before we knew what happened after?
it was hard, it was again because it was so fast. It was like, oh, we traded it. I'm okay with that. And then it was like, and I think I might have seen what we got in return, at least the first round pick
Did you
before.
think we got Jaren Jackson for a second?
No, no,
I did.
that would have been
I
awesome.
was like, is this like a Jeremy 11th pick? And I don't know.
There would have been a lot
I
more.
don't know
There would
who
have been
else.
more
A
to put
couple
on
future
that.
picks for Jaren Jackson. That was my fizz. Like which is so ridiculous, but I was really hoping.
Yeah.
Then it ended up
Um.
being a solid trade where we got 16th and we got, which I was fine with because I was really into Igor, who was drafted at 8.
Yeah.
A lot of people disagreed with that. You can
Hmm.
watch our last video and disagree with me there. Hear
Yeah.
my thoughts before you get. If you're the first time hearing them, I'm a big Igor guy. Go watch that video before you get mad at me if you didn't like him. Um, but I thought, okay, 16th. I really wanted Fleming.
Yeah.
I think the Blazers liked him.
Yeah.
We worked him out. It felt like a guy who fit the team so perfectly. I thought, okay, that's fine. We can get Fleming at 16. We could maybe even get Carter Bryant at 16. There's
The
16
Spurs.
is
Let me
still in
also
the
just say the Spurs just like letting Carter Bryant just fall to them when he can just
yeah.
chill for a little while they get good. I mean, again, just it, the guys just make the right decision. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
But yeah.
100%. And but we ended up getting 16th pick. I thought that's still a good range to get a really good player that I really like. So I was cool with that. We got a future first round pick
Yeah.
from Orlando, 2028. So that's awesome. We basically got a free future first round pick. And we got the 2 second round picks that we lost in the Anthony trade back. So it's like, okay. I was good with that. I'm so stupid that for a second I was like, maybe we got Jaren Jackson. But after that wear it off, I was like, okay, that's all right. I'm good with that.
And let me just say with that trade, like
Yeah,
before we even talk about what they did next, like when you get that trade, it's a great value for moving back 5 spots. I know the Magic, it's their 2028 and they look good right now. I think there's a world where this Magic thing doesn't work out and they're
sure.
stuck and they have to maybe even like start to think about blowing it up in 2028 because their bench is terrible and someone like Jalen Suggs isn't actually good. Something like that. There's a world where that happens. You never know in the NBA what can happen in 3 years. So let me say that getting that first round pick is awesome just to move back 5 spots, especially when you got the guy that you were going to take at 11 anyways, which is what the case was. So that trade is a great trade for what the Blazers thought about the draft.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you
The
said about
most,
the Magic
yeah, yeah, good.
potentially blowing. Sorry, did you want to keep
No,
saying
I was
something?
gonna say, but then they
Yeah.
did.
Well, first off, really quick, I love what you said about the Magic that they could end up being bad. I always love trading for any future first round pick. My rule has always been, that I'm really anti tanking.
Mhm.
You should get your high draft picks with other teams' picks. That's how the Thunder do it. That's how so many great teams. You would be stunned with how many great players in NBA history were drafted from by their team with using someone else's pick. The Celtics are the best example of that. Lately, Jason Tatum,
Yeah,
Jalen
the
Brown were
Nets.
neither of them were Boston's picks. They
Right.
traded for those. That's how you do it. You're absolutely right. The Magic could be bad, and if they're not, we still have a free first round pick.
Yeah.
Um, was really truly thinking, especially after Carter Bryant was taken, I was like, we're gonna get Fleming,
Yeah.
who ended up falling today to the 31st. I was
Yeah.
stunned by that
Yeah.
because he had a great combine. He's 40% 3-point shooter, blah, 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 doesn't really matter. Um, when I first saw that we got Young, I saw a tweet from it was Jake Fisher
Mm.
or Jake Fisher. I can't
Mm.
remember who he writes for.
Yahoo, I think.
Yeah, I think Yahoo. And I really thought because like I said, I was in a group chat during a guitar lesson, like keep me updated. I go, wait, like tell me who the Blazers draft as soon as you can. And I see that tweet, I'm like, wait. And then my brother goes, I think I just saw who got drafted, but I think it's like a troll tweet, like a Centel type of thing.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I saw the same thing, and I think you're right. And then 5 seconds later, they announced a pick. Adam Silver announces the pick on TV. My initial reaction was, and I knew who he was. I don't know if you had watched much of him, but he was like the ultimate. I always like to call guys Reddit players, guys who just like people on Reddit really, really like, who maybe aren't as good as they think they are, but they're like players for like kind of dorks in a good. I love dorks. I'm a dork. I don't
Yeah.
mean that in a derogatory way, but they're for like dorks who are like, actually, this guy's really, really good. That kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
pick. And he was the ultimate Reddit player of actual like. You look it up. There was a dozen posts after the combine, um, of people being like, actually, Young's a top. The big one was Young's a top 15 pick,
Mm.
which is, and all these people are like, he's not a top 15 pick, you stupid idiot. And now that post is getting revisited a lot right now. People being like, told you he was
Told you. I've
he was
received. I've read.
16.
Yeah.
He was 16th, yeah. But I knew who he was. At the time I had watched some of his highlights, but not a lot because I thought there's no way you're drafting a center, and I didn't really care about what felt like a late first round, early second round center that I
Yeah.
thought we had no potential of getting. But I watched him. I was like, oh, he's a cool guy, talented, good passer, skilled. But it didn't really cross my mind that because we just drafted Klingon that we would ever get him. And that was still my reaction when we drafted him was we have Klingon. Why did we get him?
Yeah.
And this is where it gets weird. Why this is such a weird pick. Because if we didn't have Klingon, we didn't have DC, I would be pretty cool with this pick. It'd be like, okay, they're getting their guy, a guy that Cronin and Schmidt um, have scouted for
Had
2 years.
a long time.
Um, a guy who's clearly skilled, great passer, humongous. I was like, okay, it's a guy that they really believe in, even if I don't fully see it. I've now watched, everything I can where he's played. I understand wanting to take that swing. But Klingon, I truly believe, and I think you agree with me, he is, I would say, he's somewhere in the top three most important players of the Blazers' future.
Yeah.
To me,
I would
the
say
three
third.
guys who
Yeah.
we've talked about, who are, and say this in no order: Danny Tumani, Klingon.
Yeah.
Like we've mentioned a million times before, last season when Ayton started, we were the 29th, had the 29th best defensive rating in the NBA. When Klingon started with the second best. I love Tumani a lot. He's an all defensive NBA player and well deserved. He works best, and this is true for every wing defender. This is not a dig at Tumani. It's just how it works for every wing defender. He works best when he has a big man in the middle to clean up anything that he overplays. You want
Yeah,
your wing defenders to an extent overplay on defense
yeah.
because then you can always make plays that way defensively. And if you mess up, you have an insane rim protecting already in my eyes a top 5 rim protector in the NBA in Klingon. I think Klingon is our future at center without a doubt. So getting Yang feels insanely redundant because it's either this. We just drafted a future backup big, which to me, if we didn't have such glaring holes offensively with the after post Ant trade, I thought, okay, the way that Ant trade is going to work, getting Drew, is if we get a great shooter in the draft, get a great shooter in free agency, all of a sudden having Drew on the team makes a lot more sense, and I'm pretty cool with it. We didn't get that in the draft, so it's either we just got a backup big for the future, which I don't think that's how we see Yang, the Blazers. When I say we, I mean the Blazers team. The way they talk about him, they talk about him, a guy who can be a real future stud on this team, or maybe they do think he's going to be a really good backup big. But if that is what they think, it doesn't really provide us with much versatility.
I don't think I don't think they think he's a backup. I think what they think they fully truly believe this guy is like the high ceiling. It's gonna hit. He's gonna be like. I truly think they think like Jokic is closer to his range of outcomes than like completely bottoming out. And it's Jokic, right? But like, and he even Cronin said
It's
like, don't get. I know,
Jokic.
but like, let me just say like they think his ceiling being incredibly high, incredibly important is as close to his or like is equally as attainable as his floor, which his floor is being unplayable right off the bat,
Yeah,
can't defend, clearly lacking in speed and awareness, right? Like there's such a range where that happens. And I think to kind of counter the point is that they felt like they could afford that swing because we have clean. I'm just trying to explain there.
I see what you're saying 100%.
And then they come to this point where, oh, if Hansen Yang is awesome and Klingon is also awesome, this is a good problem to have, right? And they're versatile. Like to me, Yang does a lot of offensive things well, and he was a decoy in China, but we'll see how that translates. That's kind of the biggest question. And Klingon has been such a defensive force right off the bat, making such an impact. But he clearly was struggling on the offensive end, right? So now they both at least seem to me, and again with Young, we're gonna have to give him some time, but we're gonna kind of know right away if some of the stuff he was doing in the CBA is gonna translate a little bit. But to me, we got an offensive guy, we have a defensive guy, and I know that both can't really coexist. And one's going to be a backup. So you just spent your first round pick the past 2 years. One of them is a backup at best case scenario. If not, you know, maybe I think Klingon's a starter. But yeah, you might have put the 16th on a backup, is what it seems like. But um, the way that the two of them kind of mirror each other and like a yin and yang type situation, I saw someone post that on Twitter. I do think makes some sense, and it makes some sense when you think of Young as highly as those guys in the front office do.
100%. And that's the thing. It's like I was about to say, we either drafted a future backup big at the 16th pick on a team that had glaring weaknesses shooting and shot making wise when we had three at the time at the 11th pick. We had Coward, Fleming, and Bryant available, 40% 3-point shooters. We passed on that, which we desperately needed to either get, if things work out at the bare minimum, a backup big in the future, or we just created a future logjam at center.
Yeah.
I know people say like, "Oh, that's not a bad problem to have two great centers." It's not, but it is when we have those shooting and shot making weaknesses. It is a problem when the two. I can't picture them playing together. They're both humongous.
Unless Young actually has a three, which there's not any real like substantive reason to think that any more than like Klingon having a three, you know?
I think even if he has a three, you can't play them together.
Yeah,
They're
it's
both too
yeah,
slow.
yeah,
And I don't think Klingon is as slow as people think, even though he looked at last season, which I know it's a kind of a crazy thing to say, is that even though he clearly had these problems, I don't think they're actually real.
mm-hmm.
But Klingon was like for was pretty quick off the feet for how big he was in college. And he
Yeah,
showed a lot of flashes of that in the NBA where it's like that was his slow-footedness I think was more a stamina issue that he clearly got better at by the end of the season than it was actually being slow-footed because he's fantastic at even when he's slow off the feet of being in positions before he needs to be to make up for those slow feet. He's
yeah,
going to be in the right spot no matter what 100% of the time. It's how you make up for slow-ish feet. He's a defensive genius of where to be and when to be. Um, but still, you can't have two of those guys playing. Even if
yeah,
Young shoots three, you can't have a guy who has to because I think Young is supposedly super slow-footed.
yeah.
What's so crazy is I or so I'll get into that this next part later. But we have I'm not sure if they can play together. If we see if we're like, okay, well, he can be a backup to Klingon, or Klingon, if it doesn't work out perfectly, can be a backup to him. There is no like matchup versatility between the two. Right now in
Yeah.
the NBA, you can have an awesome drop big like Klingon. That can work perfectly as long as you're also able to throw in a guy for some versatility when you need to, go fall 5 out on offense or need a slightly more switchable guy on the perimeter. Which actually, I think Klingon's going to be a really good perimeter defender. I think that's my hottest take is that
Yeah.
he showed some amazing flashes of really good perimeter defense just because of how good his positioning is. And I think once his stamina gets better, he's going to show that. But there's no versatility between the two. So even if we're using them as backups, it's not like you can switch them depending on the matchup.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also can talk myself into sort of liking that we're going to really commit if we do see them as two guys, because this is my other thought process. We see them as two guys who are never going to be able to play consistently more than 24 minutes a game.
Yeah.
A post I saw about Yang was I gave up on him when I saw him with his hands on his knees 4 minutes into a um, combine scrimmage. It's like 4 minutes in, he is gassed.
Yeah.
So if I can sort of see it in a way in the future where it's like maybe we don't believe Klingon and like we just want 24 amazing
24
minutes
minutes
from the
of
two of them.
each of a big center, one that
Yeah.
can pass more, one that's a bit better defender.
Which is kind of a cool way if we don't think those guys have the stamina to play like super fast modern basketball. That's a really, really interesting and I think doable way to make up for it. So
Yeah.
that's how we see it. That's cool. But it's really weird when we have a guy who I think is going to be as good as Klingon to pick another big who doesn't provide any more matchup versatility that
Yeah.
would be smart in theory to have behind Klingon, even though I have huge belief in Klingon and basically all facets defensively, even as a switchable big. Um,
It's
and to
it's
do it, and we have a huge need for shooting.
yeah. It's for sure weird.
Yeah.
That's 100%.
And I like Young as a player.
Yeah.
That's where people get like, yeah,
Yeah. So here's the thing. It's for sure weird from a fit standpoint. I don't think anyone can even argue that, right? But their mantra is best player available, and to them they felt this was the best player available. There's two ways to look at how drafts are judged, right? There's everything that goes into it pre-draft. When you think about consensus rankings and value, players have value in a draft. We obviously traded back to get Young, and that trade was good. But there's everything that happens before the draft that can determine how good your draft outcome was, and that's where all the draft grades come in, right? from every metric you can think of for that, this was a terrible pick, right? Because
Sure.
everyone thought he was going in the second round. There's a lot of reports that are kind of leaking out that don't seem very true about other
Nets wanted at
teams.
17. Was that what it
Yeah,
was? The Nets, or maybe at
they were
19?
worried, I think, the most about the Nets taking him at 19 because they had so many picks. When
Who
the
had the
Nets, I
17th pick?
think,
I heard whoever had 17 really
the
wanted him. I can't remember who said.
Timberwolves. They also there's a YouTube comment
Oh
on a
yeah, that's
video.
right.
I think
They
that was
went
on the
with
Locked On
Bevel.
Blazers.
Yeah, after.
Yeah, so some people were saying that because Minnesota took a center afterwards, that meant they might have taken Young, and they just panicked and took a
I could see that.
Berenger. So there, I mean, if they were right about that, then kudos to them for trading only back to 16, still getting their guy. I don't know how much I fully believe all of those, but it does seem like he would have been gone by the Nets' last pick at the latest. Still, based on where he was and where he was supposed to go, um, it's a bad pick from that standpoint, right? It's just
That is objectively true.
objectively a bad pick from that standpoint. But then there's the other way you can look at a draft, which is that no pick right now is a good or bad pick. We have to watch Cooper Flag. If you look at it through the other lens, Cooper Flag could be ass. There's a very, very low chance of that happening,
Very low.
but he could be ass, and it could have been a bad pick, a bad fit. You
Every
know,
pick could look good or bad in
every
5 years.
we've
That's what you're saying. You're absolutely right.
we're turning our heads. We're saying, okay, that was from this standpoint, terrible pick.
As Blazer
But
fans, we should know that best.
yeah, right. But when you look, I mean, think of Grego. Grego is the best example. I think everyone would
Wait,
find
keep with the turning the head thing. I didn't want that was awesome. Yeah,
turning head. This is bad.
yeah,
And then we're turning our head this way and saying, okay, the slate is clean. Go
nice.
prove us wrong, Hansen Young, right? Young Hansen.
I turn back.
Yeah, you can turn back.
All right, sweet. Thank you.
Now that we're done looking that way. So, I mean, it's really just going to come down to can he make an impact? These guys are literally putting their jobs on the line. I know they've got contract extensions, so maybe they feel a little bit more liberated to do that. But, I mean, this is
I kind of
not.
think since we're selling that these guys are just like going balls to the wall. We don't give a shit. Let's do whatever we want.
I mean, like, they clearly want to make a statement with this guy. But I don't know. It's weird and redundant for sure, and will it just feels. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, here's another thing is well, first off, I just want to say, and if you mean it serious, not you, but like people watching, if you seriously think he reminds you of Jokic, I hate to be like you're wrong because that sounds so arrogant and
Yeah,
pretentious. But dude, I'm not saying you're wrong because no one knows anything. We don't know what it's gonna look like in a few years. We can make our best educated guesses. But the biggest red flag for me is when someone says this guy reminds me of
insert MVP.
Jokic. No, this guy reminds me of Jokic, or this guy reminds me of Draymond.
Yeah,
Because there are two players in the history of basketball who play just like Draymond and Jokic, and it's Draymond and Jokic.
I went and looked up Jokic Serbian League highlights from when he was 18 years old just to see if it was the stuff. Half of the highlights are just Jokic strapping threes.
Oh, is that right?
It's like not even his passing chops in
Yeah.
there. It was literally just him post move and just wetting threes. And so that's not what we're getting with Young right now.
I even if you love Yang, he is not Jokic.
Yeah.
Jokic is one of one. He's one of a kind. He is not Jokic. Jokic is the guy who brings up. Even if you're like, oh, because is a good passer.
Yeah.
He really is. He is not what Jokic is as a passer. Jokic is legitimately a guy who brings up the ball and initiates the offense. Young is not that. I get mad about the same thing when I see, I love Arvydas Sabonis, Blazers legend, but people are like, oh, Sabonis would have been the just like Jokic. They're so insanely different as players, just like Young and Jokic are insanely different as players. Like I said, the two biggest things, Yang does not bring up the ball. He's a post passer and top of the key passer. And it looks like to be a really good one at that.
Yeah.
Jokic is truly a 7 foot tall, 500-pound point guard.
Yeah.
The other thing is that Jokic is one of the most mobile, hit taking bigs ever. He's like a stress ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just absorbs contact.
Absorbs contact. You can throw a stress ball to a wall. The stress ball that's my greatest. I just thought of that. That's my greatest comparison of all time. Yang is not that. Yang, and I'll say this: what my main, because I'm going to bring this up right now. I like Yang as a player. He actually does remind me of Sabonis.
Yeah.
I watch because here's what's tough about Yang. I don't know yet if there is footage we can watch online of him playing against viable competition.
Yeah, I don't know.
CBA, you mean watch the highlights, he looks dominant, but he is truly twice the size of everybody.
Yeah.
And he's dunking on he's like all his defenders are like 6'8" and below. Like 6'8" at the tallest. It's like he has such a clear and massive physical advantage. You watch and you're like, okay, some of these look good, but it's not really, I can't really do much with that. And then you look at how he played in the summer league. And he had some really nice moves, but he also had there were some moves of his that looked awesome, but he had a game where he had 12 points, 7 turnovers, and then fouled out.
Yeah.
All in the same game. And that was against summer league competition.
Yeah.
And this is not a criticism. This is just what we have to see so far.
Right.
And what really blew everyone's mind, I watched the complete 10 minutes of his play in both of these games, was the combine tape of the scrimmages.
Was that out there? I want to watch that.
He looks awesome.
Yeah.
Looks awesome. He made one of the greatest passes I've ever seen. You got to watch it. It's this wrap around spin pass to a cutter from the top of the key.
Yeah.
It's insane. His shot looked good. He was making threes, but even though it didn't, you hear, it's one of those, you watch these combine things, you read the criticisms about Yang, and you see none of them.
Yeah.
In this combine. You're like, he's insanely slow footed and can't guard the perimeter. In this combine footage, he's takes on a guard one-on-one, doesn't let him drive on him, and then blocks his 3-point attempt. And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
This is a guy who's supposed to have feet made of bricks, and he's locking a guard down and swatting his 3. He's guarding the paint well. He's doing amazingly on pick and rolls on both ends, defensively and offensively. You watch it, it's like, God, in these 13 minutes of play, he basically looks perfect.
Yeah.
There's a couple things one main thing that I don't like, and it's actually my biggest concern of him. And I saw in who's the athletic guy who has a huge draft?
Sam
Vecini. He pointed this out too. It's the first thing I noticed, and then I read Sam Vecini, and he I wonder if he said this, and he did. It's every awkward big man stands up straight and as stiff as possible from the hips up.
Yeah.
So it's like they're like this. I'm in a spinny chair right now, but this is how they move. It's like you watch Jokic, it's like a lot of jiggle to it.
Right.
There's movement and there's mobility. That's how he's able to absorb contact. When you stand up straight and you back into someone,
yeah,
it's just like a plank going into a
wall.
Again, a stress ball. It's like the stress ball is going to win that.
Yeah.
And he bounces off of him. And it's but he's able to make a lot of great moves solely off of his spin moves and footwork, stuff that I think NBA defenders can be ready to guard.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was blown away by that combine tape because all the criticism of him I thought looked really good. I thought his shot looked mostly smooth. He looked really good defensively. He didn't look slow-footed. His passing looked amazing. His shooting looked nice, like I already said. His post moves looked great. He looked fluid. He looked mobile. He didn't look as exhausted as I thought he would, even though he only played 13 minutes, where he put up 11, 6, and 6 in 13 minutes. But then I look up the scrimmage roster.
Yeah.
He's the only first-round pick there. There's a few other now second-round picks after today. I think actually Yannick, how do you pronounce his
Yannick
first name?
Niederhauser.
He was actually playing in that.
And he was the 20 ninth pick,
I think he was
the
the 30th. I
30th
think he was the
pick.
last
Yeah,
pick of the draft last night. He played in that. That was the only other first round pick, and the rest is like second round picks and undrafted guys.
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, he looked great, but we still, the fact that we have still not seen him against any real competition in real games, and the best we have is, oh, he looked really great in a scrimmage game against a bunch of undrafted players and
It's very
second round
scary.
picks.
It's very scary
And it almost makes me trust the Blazers more in the pick. That it's like we
because
don't have any proof that we can see, but what they've seen, they're sure about it.
yeah. Well,
But
let me.
also on the other end, makes me panic because it's like we don't. It
Yeah,
makes me confident in that they really like him despite that,
yeah,
but it also makes it so much more of a question mark because
yeah,
we
for
have
sure.
there's not a single time he has played against a viable competition. The most viable was in the summer league, and he, like I said, 7 turnovers, fouled out.
Yeah. Well, let me just say that I don't want this to be a situation where, and they've said that he needs time, but I'm not gonna let this be a situation where kind of like we're treating Scoot and Shaden to an extent where it's like just give them time. They're young. They're so young. Like give them all the time in the world, right?
I know I'm tired of it.
If this guy, because he's gonna get a lot of reps against Aiton, Klingon, Rabo, like he's gonna get a lot of time to practice against NBA centers against in an NBA situation now. He's in the NBA, right? If he comes out and in the limited minutes we give him to start off the season, especially if Aiden is still here, which would be crazy, and it looks terrible, like it just looks bad, and he doesn't look ready. The leash for me on that is short because to me my thinking is that if he truly is a transcendent talent that is so above and away, like he was dominating the CBA, and it's because he's that good, not just because he's that big, we will see that in flashes right away. We will
Yeah,
see him be able, because it's like defenses in theory shouldn't be able to be ready for that, right? If he is that, if his footwork is that good, if his touch is that good, he can get some really crafty buckets and have some really crafty passes right away. It might look pretty bad on the offensive end or on the defensive end. There might be times where he looks a little lost. That's fine. Like he can be excused for bad play, but we have to see those flashes pretty right away in my eyes, or else I'm gonna write this off pretty quickly as like they just thought they saw something and they whiffed. And not that that's not okay, but it's when you did trade back and get that first round pick, it's not, and you do have a center behind you, it's not the worst thing ever. I just would have rather, I think, taken that swing on a wing who can kind of do something if he's not that good. Whereas
just shooting, dude, just a
just
shooter.
shooting, a
Like, if we
problem
didn't
that
have
we
the
had.
glaring weakness, it's like, sure, take a swing.
Yeah,
But I mean, to me, it's like I actually think Jan could be a really good player, and which I'm pretty confident that he could be. Like you said, he could easily just be like a whiff after a rookie year.
yeah,
We've seen that. It reminds me. Huge shout out to my brother who gave this take. It reminds me a little bit of Darko Milicic's workout with the Pistons,
mm,
which this is, he was drafted second after LeBron in front of Melo, Wade, Bosch. I mean, and the reason for that is that basically the Pistons thought after their workout with him that they had something that no one else knew they had to an extent, even though he was still talked about prospect big time. Um, but they came to the NBA and it's like, oh wait, he's clearly not ready. That was kind of we went big and we missed and we were wrong about that. That has a huge possibility to it. And even though I think he could be a really good player, watching him, looking at his skill set, because I think a lot of his negatives maybe aren't as negative as hopefully we think they might be, but also they easily could be. That's the big risk reward. He's not going to be a Hall of Fame talent. He just simply, because the one thing he lacks, no matter what, is that insane mobility. What he could absolutely be is Vucevic, is kind of my comparison for him.
yeah.
A skilled, great finisher, really good
But
passer.
he would need to get to be a 39% 3-point shooter for that to happen.
Good point. Yeah.
Like, and it maybe it's doable. Like, maybe I could see a world, but it's really not. There's not a lot of signs. So to me,
I
like,
also love
yeah,
Blazer, not, you know, Olympic Sabonis, but Blazer Sabonis when he was like 30.
yeah,
Plays. We get so many Sabonis comparisons from like every time we draft a big, every Blazer fan's like, oh, it's Sabonis, which is
yeah.
because
But I
Sabonis
feel
is,
like with the creativity of the passing, it really does.
and with the lack of mobility,
Yeah, on the
but
yeah,
still makes up because Sabonis is still a really good defender,
yeah.
even though he's incredibly unmobile.
And that's the thing. I know Young is looks pretty immobile, but he is big, and he. I mean, we aren't getting a guy from the CBA who was a bad defender in the CBA. We're getting a guy who was a depoy in the CBA,
But
and
that's I.
maybe they gave him that title because they gave him two rookies of the year to kind of like prop him up, right?
But also because he's humongous.
But also because
Like
he's
I
humongous,
if
and
you put
I agree. It probably is going to change that way, but we're
if you put
getting
Aiden in the CBA, he'd be Defensive Player of the Year.
yeah.
I really
Well,
believe that. I 100 just because of the size now,
but I don't know if he's
athleticism.
trying that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know if Aiden wants to ever be a decoy. Let me just say, kind of wrap us up that linking
Wait,
this.
sorry, really quick. The best part is that means Aiden's probably gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We do need to say that if this means that Aiden leaves, that's a win.
Oh, it's
Just
a win.
period. It's just if Hansen Yang pushes Aiden out, win for this
Which
team.
he has to.
Yeah.
He has to.
They have
We're
to
not
have
going to
some.
run five centers.
No, there's no room for that. That would literally mean Aiden's running like 20 minutes a game and starting, and it's just
Aiden for Herter. Aiden for Herter.
Aiden for
Aiden for
Herder.
Kevin Herter. Sign Kennard. All of a sudden, the team looks ready to play next year.
Yeah, that's like
Just
12
give me
deep
some
with a lot of
shooters.
goals. Yeah.
That's the other
Um,
thing. Is like maybe we did this because we didn't think we needed to draft a shooter.
yeah.
We thought like, oh, we can get one in a trade or in free agency.
I think it
That's why
was
I'm too
literally
quick to
well,
really say what we think for sure. We got to see how it plays out.
yeah, I think they just loved him so much, and it might be like kind of blinded them from thinking logically, and we're gonna find out. That's why the pressure on this kid is now insanely high, and that just to tie this with the Drew Holiday trade. When the media is sour on your last two big moves, your home run swings that put you kind of in the spotlight. It's hard for Portland to be in the spotlight a lot. They really did it this past week. When the overall reaction to both those things is negative to really negative, yes, you're trusting yourself and you're calling your shots and you know, you have belief that what you're doing you think is right, and I respect that. But the more you keep doing those and adding those together, and you go away from the like status quo, I guess. Which again, I like us taking swings, I like us being bold, but when the reaction to them is pretty bad, it just starts to be like, okay, this better work out, or we're gonna be the big clown show running through town in a
Yeah.
Western Conference that looks pretty stacked, and a team that kind of needs to keep getting better and better, or else I kind of like that by 2028 we either have the ability to trade all these picks and hit the accelerator again if things are going well, or just completely bail out. I think they've done a good job of that, but yeah, I think with the way they've approached these two moves, the pressure to win is very real, and I'm excited for it. And I think we can win. I think we can be really good next year. But if we take any sort of step back, it's like sound the alarm
Yeah.
in my eyes. Um, so, any last thoughts?
Well, I mean, again, that's one of the things that's so confusing is that we trade for Drew because we apparently want to win as quickly as possible, which I'm always for.
Yeah. Then you
Um,
draft this project of
we draft
Young
this
Hansen.
project, but maybe it's not going to be a project, dude. It's that we have so little idea of what he actually could be because he's never played against NBA competition.
It's crazy.
That it's like such. I mean, I hate to be like, I don't want our subscribers to be like, oh, I need to know what these guys think, and then for me to be like, I have
I
no
have no
idea. At
idea. Yeah.
the end of the day, it makes this the most exciting summer league of my life.
That's the real key is that this pick is fun at the least. Like just
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
enjoy it, even if you hate it. Even if we all know it's kind of objectively with what we've been given so far bad, like we said, but like where the spotlight's on us, the spotlight's on him. He's creative. They're comparing him to Jokic. Like, at least let's have fun with it until it maybe does crash and burn. But I mean, if they're right with how good they think he is, and his ceiling is as high as they think it is, this could be a really really fun outcome.
Well, can I ask you something really quick?
Yeah.
Do you think that his ceiling is higher than Klingon's? I know you haven't watched a lot of them. If you want me to answer that first, I
I
can if
think
you
his
want.
ceiling is higher than Klingon's. I
I
think his
completely disagree.
floor. You completely disagree.
Yeah.
I think his floor is so far below. I think Klingon's floor is really high. I don't know how high his ceiling is, but I think Young's ceiling is high. It's a little. I think I'll go a little bit higher than Klingon's. I think his floor is like you know, in the
I
ground,
think
right?
Klingon's I think Yang's peak would be like Vucevic or again, I see him as Blazer Sabonis. That's going to be his peak, and I think that's exciting. I
I
see
just think if the
Sabonis,
defense does get there, he could be awesome.
which I actually have faith in his defense. I really do. He looked really good in that combine. I think when you watch that, you're going to be like, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
But again, it was against second round picks and undrafted players. But I think Klingon, I just really see Klingon as a future defensive player of the year type of guy.
yeah,
I think he's already shown that as a rookie. He had the biggest impact as a rookie big man defensively than anyone in years. So it's like, to me, I don't think Yang is ever going to be good enough to completely steal that starting spot from Klingon,
yeah,
which is why I really don't think that.
yeah,
Even though I do think Yang could be a really good player, I think at best him and Klingon are interchangeably good.
yeah,
With Young being maybe slightly worse, just because I think of the future impact Klingon's going to have defensively because of what he already has had. Um, so I guess best case scenarios, we play them both 24 minutes, which I think is truly possible given how bad their stamina both
yeah.
looks.
And that's probably somewhat in their thinking. But again, I think their thinking was just best player available, and to them they thought this guy's best player available, and if by chance, it's a good thing Aiden's gone. If by chance both these guys are so impactful that we have a tough time figuring out who to play, that's a good problem to have. Um, and
It is, but it
but
also
it doesn't make a lot of logical sense. But that's what they were going for. Is just
again, let's
best
just
for
see
all
what
of
at
them.
the end of the offseason looks like, what our shooters look like.
Yeah,
Because that's just if we're able to add two shooters through free agency or through trade, all of a sudden the Ant trade looks way better and this pick looks way better.
yeah, for sure. So we gotta see what Joe Cronin and Mike Schmidt still have up their sleeve. But offseason is not over. We got free agency coming up. We will come
We are an
a
exciting team.
very it's fun, unique. And that's the last thing is that I'm happy they're being unconventional and unique, and they're thinking because I think that thinking outside of the box like that is kind of what it takes to be good, especially with how good OKC looks and things like that. Like you got to take swings, and
It's
these are
it's one of the best
swings.
parts about you're 100% right. It's one of the best parts about being a Blazer fan is I think we're the most, especially historically, we have almost never been boring.
Yeah, tried to be fun, trying to be exceptional here. So you got to at least
We're
respect them for that.
historically we're pretty good and we're pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I think we'll be good. We'll see how the offseason goes. Hopefully, this means Aiden is gone. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully, we covered all the angles we could on Yang Hansen. We're rooting on the kid. Let's be the focal point of Chinese basketball fans, and let's make this
Yes.
an awesome run rather than a
I mean,
big
how cool is
flame
that?
out.
Now we have like the most we have a whole new fan base in
Yeah.
China.
If
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's fun. It's very
It's
fun.
really fun.
All right, appreciate y'all. We'll see how free
Blazers are
agency
cool.
turns
See you
out.
guys soon.